Yeah, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, this show is doo-doo ass kicks. I'm not even the biggest Boba Fett fan to be quite honest. I only barely know what he does in the comics, but I'm still very disappointed in this show. I'm actually pretty bummed this show is as bad as it is because I'm someone that sees Dave Filoni as the savior of Star Wars. After Rise of Skywalker came out and how incompetent that movie was, I was pretty much done with Star Wars. But my lord and savior Filoni created the Siege of Mandalore arc, and it reminded me just how good Star Wars could be if done well. That one arc did what a whole trilogy couldn't do. After watching that, I was basically converted to be a Filoni follower. Pretty much everything he has touched has been amazing so far. Clone Wars is a masterpiece. Jedi Fallen Order had a great story. The Mandalorian blew everyone away. Even Rebels, a show that I don't really like, still has some great moments in it. That really just showed me that Filoni at his worst can still provide great Star Wars content. So when it was announced we were getting a Boba Fett show instead of Season 3 of Mandalorian, I thought it was going to be a piece of cake for him. Boba Fett as a crime boss seemed like the easiest thing to make a show out of. Hell, Filoni even did a crime boss arc in Clone Wars, so I thought he was going to knock this one out of the park. But holy shit was I wrong. The Book of Everyone But Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season 2.5, Boba Fett Endgame. You can call this show anything you want except the one thing it was supposed to be. A Boba Fett show. The writing and story structure here is beyond terrible, and it sucks because the show starts off so good, but it just nosedives immediately by episode 3. There's just so many things that went wrong here, but was any of this really Filoni's fault? Has he really lost his touch this soon, or was it beyond his control? Let's open this book and find out. Where do I even start with this show? The pacing, characters, plot, writing, directing. There's just too many things to pick apart in this show. How about I start with the good stuff first? Like I said before, the show does have a pretty decent start. The first 2 episodes show a side of Boba Fett I didn't know I wanted. Seeing him live among the Tusken Raiders and learning about loyalty and respect, as well as developing the Tuskens themselves, was so damn cool. I didn't think they could write the Tusken Raiders to be interesting, but they blew me away with how well they did. Unfortunately, this is the best characterization they give Boba Fett. The show initially starts with an A and B plot, the A plot being in present time and the B plot being his flashbacks. Now it doesn't happen too often, but when your B plot is light years more interesting than your A plot, there's bound to be some issues. The A plot is meant to be the most important of the two. The B plot is meant to be complementary to the A plot, but that's not the case at all here. Boba Fett's flashback is just objectively more interesting to watch than what he's doing as a crime boss. And sadly, the two stories don't even seem to connect until the very last episode in such a half-assed way. Boba Fett just has nothing to do that's even somewhat interesting to watch in the present time. Then, just when you think the show can somehow turn it around, they go completely the opposite way. Not only do they just end Boba Fett's story with the Tuskens by killing them off, even though they're the only interesting thing in the whole goddamn show, they also mess up the A plot even more by changing who the main villains are for no reason. What's the benefit from changing the villains from the Hutt clan to the Pikes? It's completely fucking useless. And then they bring in these guys? Oh, don't worry, I'll get to them later. So we have all these issues that the show needs to fix in 3 episodes. How do they do that? By changing the main character. I don't even feel like I need to explain just how bad this is from a writing perspective. Instead of fixing the show's main issues, they just said screw it and completely ignore the problems by just making a Mandalorian show now. And it's really jarring because these 2 episodes they give him are actually pretty good. But there's a time and place for this, and it's not in this show. It would be like in Mandalorian Season 2, where after the episode where they introduce Ahsoka, the next 2 episodes are just about her and have nothing to do with Mando's story. It doesn't matter how good those episodes are, it's still a disjointed mess. Giving Mando 2 whole episodes and a 7-episode show is just insane. especially when the first two are good and the following two are shit. This leads to the last episode needing to fix all of these issues, and surprisingly, it fixes none of them. Who would have thought? It's almost as if ignoring the problems of your show doesn't make them magically go away. I mean, just look at the last episode. The final conflict isn't even focused on Boba Fett fighting Bane. It's focused on Grogu saving Mando. The main priority of this show was just not in the right place. If they spent all of that time and effort focusing on Mando and instead used it on Boba Fett, maybe this show wouldn't have been so shit. But maybe the other characters are good, right?
Go, go, Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers!
Like I said before, Boba Fett is only an actual character during his scenes with the Tuskens. When he's a crime boss, he's barely even a person. They basically just took the 5 minutes Boba Fett had in Empire Strikes Back and just made that the main character. All he does is either stand around and say cool dialogue, or he's tonally off and written like a goofball. He has zero character work here. He has no arc whatsoever. They can't even explain why he likes Tatooine so much. I've been trying to figure this out for so long. Why does he like Tatooine so much? It can't be because of the Tuskens, because the ones he knew are already dead, and he never goes out to try and recruit other ones for some fucking reason. He continuously says throughout the show that it's his city, and these are his people. But you don't know any of these people. Why do you like Tatooine so much?
Why does everyone want to go back to
Tatooine?
And now the next Star Wars show is also set on Tatooine? I am so sick of this planet now. Fennec Shand is also just there to be cool and nothing else. Both of these characters have zero chemistry unless you count somewhat funny banter, but that's it. You'd think two former skilled bounty hunters would have a lot to talk about, but nope. There's really only one scene where they talk to each other like actual people. But let's move on to the actual main characters, Grogu and Mando. If I'm being completely honest, them even being in the show annoys me. We couldn't just get one side story about Boba Fett. Instead, we had to bring in these two just so that the Mandalorian fans could be happy. And like I said before, the episodes about them are really good. Mando trying to use the Darksaber as well as learning to let go of Grogu, seeing Luke train Grogu in the ways of the Force. It's good stuff, but again, it's completely misplaced. I'd say the only thing I don't like about their stories is that Grogu ends up with Mando again, because it makes the last scene from Season 2 lose its emotional impact. I thought Mando Season 3 would have been about their separate stories, one learning to rule Mandalore, the other learning to use the Force. I don't know, it just seemed like the writers didn't have a way to explain why Grogu isn't in the sequel trilogy, since you can't really kill a character like him. So they took the easy way out and just returned him to the status quo. I would have preferred something different. And then we have the side characters. Black Kirstansis... Black Christie, whatever, is misused as fuck. I don't know much about him other than he was in the comics, but once I saw this badass Wookiee appear, I was so hyped to see what he would do. He looked like a cool antagonist that could overpower Boba Fett. But nope. He just turns into a funny joke, because people still don't know how to rate Wookiees as anything other than jokes. Speaking of jokes, there's these people! Do I even need to explain why I hate these characters? They are so misplaced, and that's something very hard to do in Star Wars, since you could tell almost any story in this franchise. So when something sticks out, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Not only do they look like shit, they aren't even real characters. They also have no arcs, no personalities, nothing. Is there any character that could save this awful show? No, it's not Bane either, sorry. I think he is by far the most wasted character here. Cad Bane is a great Star Wars character. He is one of the best things that came out of the Clone Wars by far. In an unfinished Clone Wars arc, he was supposed to mentor Boba Fett, but then after a dispute, it ends in a badass classic western shootout where Bane dies and Boba gets that bullet dink in his helmet. And this arc would have been amazing, and it does so many good things for both characters. It would have given us actual characterization for Bane since up to this point he's just been a badass in previous episodes. It would have given a young Boba Fett even more character work than he's already gotten in that show, and it's pretty much the perfect way to kill off Bane. Cad Bane is meant to be the best bounty hunter during the Clone Wars era, and Boba Fett is meant to be the best bounty hunter during the Empire era. Who else to kill Bane other than the guy who literally takes his place? So if you're planning to bring him back from the dead after such a perfect way to do so, you better have a damn good reason for it. I was shocked when he returned the Bad Batch, but he doesn't really do much besides make a cameo. So when he showed up in Boba Fett, I was shocked again. But unfortunately, he is not used properly at all. They pretty much give him the Kingpin treatment from Hawkeye. He shows up just for the last episode and does nothing but die. Besides that cool scene with Cobb Vanth, he does very little in the final episode. He also interacts with Boba Fett in a weird way. You'd think that two rivals seeing each other again after a long period of time would have more weight to it, but the way they talk makes it seem like they've never met before.
You're looking for a job, you're late.
I've already got a job.
But then later, they hint at the Clone Wars duel without actually saying it happened?
I'm not a little boy any longer, and you are an old man.
Do you two know each other or not? You wanna know how a long-term meetup between rivals looks like? Like this!
You may have forgotten me, but I will never forget you. You cannot imagine the depths I would go to stay alive, fueled by my singular hatred for you.
There is none of this bad blood feel between Boba Fett and Cad Bane, and then he just dies in the most anticlimactic fight I have ever seen in Star Wars. It's almost as bad as this scene. And yeah, I know that his heart monitor thing is still beeping, but I see this as a bad thing either way. On one hand, they would have killed a legendary character in an anticlimactic way, but on the other hand, if he stays alive, what else is he supposed to do? I feel like Cad Bane's fate should be tied to Boba Fett's, but for some reason, they wouldn't just let that unfinished Clone Wars arc be the canon reason why he's dead. This just feels like Filoni really wanted to end this character as quickly as possible, but forgot to actually tell a worthwhile story while doing so. If there's one thing I wasn't expecting the show to do, it was to be so fan-servicey. Now I know that fanservice has been a staple in Disney's era of Star Wars. It's kind of unavoidable at this point, but the best Star Wars media at least uses the fanservice in a way that makes sense. Remember when Mando Season 2 came out and a lot of people didn't like all the cameos that occurred? As much as it was kind of distracting to see all of these returning characters, I didn't mind it that much because the characters that did make a cameo were at least important to the story. But this show really decided to step it up with how much fan service they could add. And it's all just so bad. They bring Black Christine from the comics, Cad Bane makes another return, Mando, Grogu, Luke, Ahsoka, and the whole bunch of side characters from The Mandalorian. And it just feels so cheap. These cameos were either just really bad use of the character, or just felt so misplaced. Seeing Luke and Ahsoka meet is something I've always wanted to see, but here it just feels so fan-made. Again, this isn't the right time or place for this scene to occur. And if we're gonna bring in characters for the fun of it, you might as well bring characters that are actually important to Boba Fett, like Bosk. He's someone that actually took care of Boba when Jango died, and would have been a great character to see return. I just wish that Star Wars would stray from the Easter egg callback mentality that Marvel is doing, because it feels so out of place for this franchise to do this. So what happened? Did my Lord and Savior Filoni really just mess up? Or was there an evil, an even more sinister plan, hiding from beneath the shadows? No, actually it was these guys, not Filoni. Yeah, so according to IMDb, Filoni only wrote the second to last episode, but Jon Favreau, George Lucas, and this guy wrote the rest of the episodes. That was really easy to figure out. They probably should have opened with that, huh? While My Messiah Filoni didn't have a major impact with this show, it still sucks so much ass. And while I don't mean to discredit these guys who wrote the show, since they've made previous Star Wars content that is amazing, that isn't a pass for the show to be as bad as it was. And yeah, I could put on my tinfoil hat, come up with batshit insane theories as to why the show came out so shit, but maybe, just maybe, there just wasn't a good idea for a Boba Fett show. In my mind, making a Boba Fett show seemed really easy to make, but hey, I don't write high-budget TV shows for a living, so maybe there was a lot of unknown factors that led to the show being how it is. But still, that isn't an excuse for everything the show has. Bad writing, bad characterization, a very messy plot. There's just not a lot to enjoy here. So unfortunately, I gotta give the Book of Boba Fett a 3 out of 10.